Exposed. Rich woman's heartless action towards waitress reveals an amazing, life-changing truth. The sun blazed through the dusty windows of the downtown diner, casting a warm glow over the chrome and vinyl decor that had seen better days. Sarah, her heart-shaped face lined with the fatigue of endless shifts, moved like clockwork, pouring coffee, taking orders, and flashing her bittersweet smile at the regulars who adored her. Each day was a new battle for this tenacious single mother, who strove tirelessly to provide a better life for her 7-year-old daughter, Lily. She was a beacon of resilience in a world that often felt dim. That fateful afternoon, as laughter bubbled around the small enclave, a well-heeled socialite strode in, a whirlwind of designer clothes and haughty remarks. Elizabeth, with her self-assured swagger, made the modest diner feel so small. Without a second thought, she glanced dismissively at Sarah, her lips curling into a sneer. "Do you even own a mirror?" she spat. The words hung in the air like an unwanted weight, and gasps rippled through the crowd. The regulars, who had stood by Sarah through thick and thin, felt an overwhelming wave of indignation. They'd shared countless breakfasts with her, seen her struggles, and admired her smarts. Murmurs of discontent filled the diner, the atmosphere shifting as they readied to defend their beloved waitress. Sarah's heart raced, the flushing heat of embarrassment battling indignation. Could she really confront a woman who looked down on her so carelessly? But in that moment, the embers of courage ignited within her. She squared her shoulders, approached Elizabeth, and spoke up, her voice trembling yet fierce. The exchange was electric, each word filled with raw emotion as their contrasting worlds collided. Sarah laid bare the struggle she faced just to survive, while Elizabeth's arrogance wrestled with the realization of her own indifference, shaking the ground beneath them both. Then, as fate would have it, a small child, innocent and pure, tripped and spilled a milkshake all over Sarah's apron. The diner went quiet. Sarah instinctively knelt to console the little girl, her nurturing heart overpowering her own discomfort. As she looked up, she locked eyes with Elizabeth, who stood pale and frozen, a shudder of recognition rippling through her. The child, so reminiscent of Sarah's own Lily, stirred something deep within Elizabeth's memories of her upbringing, the warmth of compassion she had long buried beneath layers of privilege. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With emotions crackling in the air, the atmosphere in the diner was thick with possibility. Elizabeth's facade, once unyielding, began to crack. The tension was palpable, and the patrons felt their own plight reflected in the faces of these two women standing at an emotional crossroads. Murphy, the grumpy old man who usually cursed the coffee, had tears welling in his eyes. Sarah's fierce spirit and Elizabeth's fragile realization hung ahead like a forked path. But just as understanding seemed within reach, Elizabeth hesitated. The weight of her privilege clashed with the blooming empathy in her heart, leaving the diner in a hush of hopeful anticipation. All eyes were on them, breaths caught in the thrill of potential reconciliation. The moment hovered, leaving both women and everyone watching on the brink of something transformative. What would they choose? In that charged moment, Elizabeth's gaze drifted from Sarah to the small girl, still sniffling on the floor, and then back to the waitress. The diners held their breath, waiting for something to shatter the tension. Elizabeth's posture shifted, her shoulders relaxing just enough for a faint glimmer of vulnerability to shine through. I didn't mean," Elizabeth started, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at her designer shoes, like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I didn't think. Sarah remained kneeling, heart racing, torn between the urge to comfort the little girl and the burning need to confront Elizabeth's dismissiveness. The apology, almost buried beneath layers of entitlement, hung in the air. The regulars exchanged glances of surprise. Elizabeth was not a woman accustomed to admitting fault, and yet here she was, teetering on the edge of a change. The waitress could see the cracks widening in the socialite's carefully crafted armor. "You didn't think about me or the people in this diner," Sarah replied, her voice steady but laced with pain. "But that little girl," she gestured to the child. "She just wanted a good time. We all have our priorities, don't we?" The words landed heavy, igniting something deep inside Elizabeth. A flicker of discomfort crossed her face, as though she had just eaten something bitter. For just a moment, she seemed to glance beyond herself, feeling the weight of collective eyes searching for answers in a moment that could shift their entire perspective of humanity. "What do you even know about me?" Elizabeth's defense was weak, the bravado melting away like ice under the summer sun. "I know," Sarah said softly, "that we all face battles, just different ones." Some patrons began murmuring softly in agreement, their eyes alight with recognition. Support flowed through the diner. They were a community, bound not just by their love for Sarah, but by shared experiences of struggle too. In that solidarity, hope flickered. Murphy nodded at Sarah, his old face wrinkled in thought. "She speaks truth, Elizabeth. We all do our best with what we have." Elizabeth stood in silence, her mind racing. The weight of her advantages felt like stones in her pockets, dragging her soul down into a familiar darkness. Was it really possible that the waitress was speaking to her heart? Maybe Elizabeth started hesitantly. "Maybe I need to do better." Another murmur spread through the diner, a wave of surprise and optimism that washed over the onlookers. "Doing better's not easy," Sarah interjected gently. "But it starts with recognizing where we're at and who we impact." Suddenly, the little girl crawled to Sarah, a tiny hand reaching out to her in a gesture of trust. It was instinctual, this need for comfort. Sarah took the girl's hand and, feeling her warm grip, a spark of hope ignited in her heart that bubbled towards the surface. "What is your name?" Sarah asked the girl, wiping the remnants of milkshake from her apron as best as she could. "Emily," the child whispered, her eyes wide with admiration. Elizabeth stepped forward, tentatively reaching out to Emily. "I'm sorry for being mean, Emily," she said, a heartfelt sincerity beginning to color her indifference. "And I'll try to be nicer." The room fell silent again, but this time with something different. There was a feeling of hope. Every heart in the diner sensed a change, a light flickering into life from the shadows. "What happens next?" Someone from the corner of the diner called out. It felt like a challenge, a question all of them contemplated. As everyone watched, awaiting Elizabeth's next move, the weight of her past decisions loomed over her. "I want to help," she finally declared, a breathless determination in her voice. "I want to make a difference." Sarah's eyes widened, filled with disbelief and curiosity. "How do you plan on doing that?" Just then, a commotion at the front of the diner distracted them. A new figure entered, someone familiar yet unexpected. The door swung open with a thud, and all eyes turned. Would this person turn the tide again, or would their arrival solidify the first step towards real change? The clatter of the door echoed through the diner, capturing everyone's attention just as they held their breath in anticipation. A tall figure stepped inside, shaking raindrops off their coat, a familiar face that sent a ripple of whispers through the crowd. It was Michael, the town's beloved pastor, with his warm smile and comforting presence that soothed even the most troubled hearts. "What is going on here?" he asked, his voice a blend of concern and curiosity as he surveyed the atmosphere thick with tension. Elizabeth felt her heart race. It was as if fate had sent her a lifeline, a confirmation that she wasn't alone in this moment of reckoning. She looked at Sarah and the little girl, Emily, still clinging to the waitress's leg, her small frame a beacon of innocence amidst the chaos. Elizabeth was just starting to recognize the impact of her actions. Sarah replied, her voice steady. It's been a tough moment for all of us. Michael's eyes lit up with understanding. He sidled up to Elizabeth, standing beside her with an expression that was both gentle and encouraging. It's never too late to amend the past, Elizabeth. Sometimes, admitting we've been wrong is the hardest step we can take, but it's also the most rewarding. Elizabeth felt something shift. The pastor's words rang true, but even deeper, they carried the weight of countless others' experiences. She opened her mouth to speak, but emotion constricted her voice. The diner was silent, waiting. I want to do something, she managed finally, her voice trembling. I want to help Emily and kids like her. Not just tonight. I want to make it a regular thing. A gasp escaped from one of the patrons, followed by a hushed excitement that spread through the diner like wildfire. Supportive nods rippled around the room, and the atmosphere grew electric with possibility. What do you have in mind? Asked Michael, his eyes sparkling with inspiration. Elizabeth shifted her weight, gathering her thoughts. Maybe we could organize a fundraiser. A fun day for families in the park. Games, food. Something that would make kids smile. And I'll even pitch in to help with the budget. I've got connections. A roar of approval erupted from the crowd. Everyone wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves, and Elizabeth's sudden commitment seemed to ignite a flame. But then Sarah, the anchor in the whirlwind, raised a hand. That's a fantastic idea, but it's not just about the event. It has to be a reminder for us all to look out for each other. That we're one community. Her voice carried an urgency, a plea for change beyond the diner's walls. Michael nodded, his expression serious. Sarah's right. Real change starts with small acts of kindness and understanding, one person at a time. We must ensure we don't lose sight of that as we move forward. Elizabeth swallowed hard, realizing the weight of their words. Her life had always revolved around glamorous events and selfish pursuits. Yet, standing here, surrounded by heartfelt sincerity and hope, she felt the tug of something greater. As they formulated plans, ideas fluttered in the air. Laughter began to bubble up again as patrons spoke together, excited by the prospect of giving. Elizabeth felt warmth wash over her, mixing with the disbelief that had begun to dwindle. She could feel the free fall of her new reality, but fear had transformed into resolve. Then, just as the conversations began to crescendo in possibility, a sudden loud crash came from the back of the diner. Everyone's heads whipped to the sound, hearts skipping a beat. Was this new journey already in peril, or was it a chance for even deeper reflection and connection? The loud crash reverberated through the diner, followed by a collective gasp. Chairs scraped back, and everyone turned to see what had happened. Elizabeth's heart raced as she squinted through the crowd, trying to make sense of the chaos. A table had toppled over, dishes clattering to the floor in a whirlwind of porcelain and silverware. The source of the commotion was a young man, Ethan, who had stumbled backward, knocking into the table while trying to speak. His face was a mixture of embarrassment and urgency. "I'm so sorry. He stammered, eyes wide and flustered. I just heard what everyone was saying, and I thought I should say something." Michael stepped closer, his calm demeanor a refuge amidst the storm of startled expressions. "What is it, Ethan?" "We're listening." Ethan swallowed, his hands trembling slightly. I used to be one of those kids at the park. The ones who didn't have much. I remember how tough it was, feeling alone or ignored. When you mentioned the fundraiser, I thought maybe it could be even more than a fun day. It could be a way to give those kids hope. His words hung heavy in the air, resonating within every heart in the room. Elizabeth felt a wave of empathy wash over her. "We can do that," she said, her voice sounding steadier now. "With the money raised, we can offer programs, camps, mentorships, after-school activities. Something to keep them engaged and feeling valued." Sarah clapped her hands together, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Yes. We could set up tutoring sessions, art classes, sports leagues." Imagine the smiles on their faces. The diner buzzed with energy, ideas flying around like fireflies on a summer night. The clamor was infectious, everyone eager to share their thoughts, dreaming big on how to turn the vision into reality. But amidst the excitement, Elizabeth caught sight of Emily, who was peering at the commotion with wide, uncertain eyes. It struck her then that this wasn't just about raising funds or organizing events. It was about so much more. "Ethan," Elizabeth said softly, "what do you think would have helped you the most when you were little? If you had a chance, what do you wish you could have done?" Ethan paused. "I think just knowing someone cared. That someone saw me. That I was valued, you know? Sometimes it's the small things." His voice trailed off, yet the quiet impact of his words resonated with the crowd. A hush fell over the diner as everyone reflected. The clamor transformed into something softer, more profound. Elizabeth's gaze flickered around the room. She could see hope sparking in the eyes of every person present, a community coming together, shedding the cloak of indifference. This was the shift she had wanted, one that could resonate beyond the walls of the diner. Yet, as the hope blossomed, a shadow loomed over her thoughts. Could she truly lead such an endeavor and keep it flowing? Doubt stirred in the back of her mind. Just then, the door swung open again, this time allowing in a gust of wind that carried with it a sharp chill. A woman stepped in, her face pale, eyes wild. "I heard about the fundraiser," she gasped, catching her breath. "I need to talk to Elizabeth. It's about the recent case at the school. It involves every." I turned to Elizabeth, her breath catching in her throat. Who was this woman, and what news could change everything? The diner's atmosphere shifted again, tension creeping back in, reminding her that even in moments of growth, storms could still brew on the horizon. The woman stepped forward, the murmur of the diner fading into a tense silence. Elizabeth stepped toward her, each heartbeat louder than the last. "What is this about a case?" Elizabeth asked, her voice steadying despite the knot tightening in her stomach. The stranger inhaled deeply, as if gathering her strength. "I'm Clara. I've been following the issues at Riverview School. There has been talk, not just rumors, but serious concerns about a group of kids. The ones you want to help." Her eyes flickered anxiously. "What kind of concerns?" Michael interjected, his brow furrowing. Clara glanced around the diner, where the murmur of ideas had sparked hope just moments ago. Now, the vibe shifted from creative excitement to apprehension. There have been incidents, bullying, kids being singled out. But there's something worse. Some families can't provide for them properly. They're not just in need of support, they're in crisis. Elizabeth felt the weight of her ambition pressing down. What they envisioned could be overshadowed by the harsh reality. "Do we know which kids are affected?" Clara nodded, her gaze landing on Emily, still an unsteady presence in the back. "Yes, some of them are right here in this very diner. Those you want to uplift could be suffering the most." A wave of unease rippled through the crowd as Elizabeth searched Clara's face, looking for depth in those words. "How do we help them?" "By not just raising funds for activities," Clara replied, urgency seeping into her voice, "but by standing up for them. We need to address the bullying, the neglect. It's not just about programs, it's about changing the culture, the environment." Sarah shifted uneasily, her excitement dimmed by the stark reality. "But how? It's a big issue. Who would take that on?" Ethan stepped in closer, his previous confidence shifting. "Someone has to start somewhere. If we're serious about this, we'll need to make our voices louder. We need to connect directly with those families. Learn their stories. As Clara said, it can't just be a fundraiser anymore. The energy in the diner was shared, passion mixed with resolve. But Elizabeth felt a deep dread bubbling inside her. Leading this initiative was one thing, but confronting the complexities of the lives involved was another beast entirely. Clara continued, "These kids need advocates, not just fun activities. What good is a summer camp if they feel unsafe at school?" Elizabeth silently absorbed the words. Could she really lead this? What if she failed? Then, unexpectedly, Emily's small voice broke through the air. "I know some of them." Her expression was a mix of worry and determination. "They're in my class, we can help them." "Can't we?" Gasps passed through the diner, mingling with soft murmurs of agreement. The view shifted from an external focus back to their very own community. "Of course we can," Elizabeth affirmed, less certain but fueled by Emily's bravery. "It has to start here. But we'll need a plan." As ideas began to flow again, Elizabeth felt a spark igniting within her. It wasn't going to be easy, but she realized hope wasn't just in the big dreams. They had to confront the little lives at stake, one by one. Just then, the door swung open again, revealing a familiar, anxious face, Emily's younger brother. "You have to come with me." Something happened at school. The sudden tension was palpable. What could have possibly happened? Elizabeth felt herself being pulled in another direction, uncertainty looming larger. Was this the catalyst they needed? Would it push them to act, or send them spiraling? Elizabeth's heart raced as she locked eyes with Emily's brother. Panic flickered across the boy's face, a reflection of the turmoil building in her own chest. "What happened?" she asked, her voice tight. "It's one of the kids from school," he exclaimed, breathless. "They were in the courtyard, and there was a fight. It got really bad. They're hurt." The word struck Elizabeth like a punch. A collective gasp rose from the diner, voices overlapping in worry and confusion. The immediate atmosphere shifted from planning to a sense of urgency. Elizabeth exchanged glances with Michael and the others, understanding that now was the moment for action. "Let us go," she said, determination surging through her. They couldn't just wait around and talk. They had to see for themselves. Emily's brother led the way, sprinting toward the school, while Elizabeth, Michael, Clara, Sarah, and Ethan hurried behind. Each step fueled by a mixture of dread and an electric yearning to make a difference. The air was thick with tension, and Elizabeth could hear her heart pounding in her ears. As they reached the school, the familiar building loomed ahead, but it felt like a different world. The laughter of children was overshadowed by an unsettling silence pierced only by the distant voices of teachers trying to calm the chaos. Elizabeth pushed through the front doors, her stomach churning with every glance at the worried faces surrounding her. They found a small crowd gathered outside the courtyard. Teachers were trying to restore order, but the frenzy was palpable. Elizabeth caught sight of familiar faces among the distressed crowd, some of the kids they had been discussing just moments ago. Her throat tightened. "Get back. Everyone step back," a teacher shouted, trying to create some space. Emily pulled on Elizabeth's sleeve, her eyes wide. "That's Jamie." She pointed towards a boy sitting on the grass, cradling his arm close to his body. "He's one of them. He is always nice to me, but I didn't know he was in trouble." Elizabeth knelt down beside Emily, her heart aching. "Stay close to me," she said, focusing on Jamie. Was this the same boy who, just weeks ago, had been smiling while sharing a joke with Emily? As they closed in, Elizabeth could see Jamie's face, a mix of pain and fear. Around him, kids whispered, some looking away, ashamed, while others silently watched. "Jamie, can you hear me?" Elizabeth spoke softly, hoping to bridge the chaos with comfort. His gaze flickered up, eyes glistening. "I didn't do anything," he whispered, a frightened tremor in his voice. Then it hit her, the heart of what they were fighting against. Jamie had become a victim, trapped in a cycle of violence and neglect. Behind her, the murmurs in the crowd grew louder, filled with concern but also judgment. Elizabeth felt a surge of emotion. This wasn't just about a plan anymore. It was about real lives and real hurt. "We have to help him," she said, rising to face the gathering crowd. "We can't let this go on. This isn't just Jamie's responsibility. It's ours as a community." The words clung in the air, pulling fresh gasps and lingering looks from the parents and teens around her. They had come here looking for help, perhaps even outside support, but what they truly needed was a voice, someone to stand up for their children, for their future. Suddenly Jamie spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared. I don't want to go back." Her heart broke. "We won't let you go back alone, Jamie. We'll figure this out together." Just then, the principal stepped out, her expression stern but worried. "What is going on here?" Elizabeth felt the pressure building again, knowing this was perhaps the moment that would define their mission. Would they stand together? Or scatter like leaves in the wind? As she caught the principal's eye, Elizabeth realized this was the moment of truth. She took a deep breath. Something needs to change here. It has to change now. But as she spoke, a figure emerged from the crowd, a student dragging their feet, eyes downcast, looking like the weight of the world rested on their shoulders. Elizabeth's breath hitched. What story would this kid tell? What would the ripple effect of their actions be? She had a feeling this was the spark they needed, but the question loomed larger. Were they ready to ignite the change? The student hesitated at the edge of the crowd before stepping forward, their shoulders hunching as if trying to make themselves smaller. Elizabeth recognized the familiar face. It was Alex, a quiet kid with sandy hair who often sat at the back of the classroom, always blending into the background. The crowd parted just enough for him to enter, but he didn't look up. Instead, he focused on the ground, as if it held the answers to all his questions. "Alex," Elizabeth called softly, hoping to break through the tension wrapping around him. When he finally raised his head, she was taken aback. His eyes were filled with unshed tears, a mixture of fear and resentment that mirrored the ache in Jamie's face. He started, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean to get involved." The words rushed out, like a dam breaking. "It just happened so fast. I wanted to stop it, but I was scared." Everyone was. The weight of his confession hung heavily in the air. Elizabeth's heart ached for him. How many times had she felt helpless in the face of cruelty, of anger? She took a step closer, her heart racing with empathy. "It's not your fault," she said firmly, hoping her voice sounded stronger than the tremble in her chest. "You didn't start the fight. But we can be the ones to stop the hurt." Alex wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his jacket, looking around at the crowd of onlookers, their expressions a mix of concern and disbelief. It was obvious he didn't see the community they represented. He only saw judgment. "What if no one listens?" he whispered. Elizabeth felt a flicker of determination rise inside her. "If we speak up together, they will. You're not alone in this, Alex. Neither is Jamie." She turned her gaze back to the principal, whose brows were now furrowed with worry. "We need to create a space where we can all feel safe together." There was a moment of silence, and then Michael stepped forward, his confident posture catching everyone's attention. "We should hold a meeting, an open forum for everyone to share what they feel," he suggested. "Both kids and adults. We can't fix this if we don't talk about it." The crowd murmured in agreement, glances exchanged, nods given. A sense of unity began to form, and Elizabeth could feel it, a pulse thrumming in the air. This was it. They were no longer a collection of individuals, but a community rallying for change. But even as hope surged within her, a gnawing thought lingered. What about those who wouldn't come forward? The kids still hiding in the shadows, too afraid to step into the light? And what about those who don't feel safe talking? She posed aloud, searching the faces before her. Alex stepped forward again, his voice clearer now. Then maybe we can write notes, or share anonymously something to get the conversation started. His idea sparked inspiration. What if we created a safe box? A way for everyone to share their feelings without fear of being singled out. Clara chimed in, her voice a soothing balm amidst the storm. We could check it regularly, read them out loud in the meeting. Nervous anticipation filled the air as Elizabeth looked at Jamie and Alex, both of them slowly gaining a spark of hope. If they could cultivate a safe space, open communication might be the first step toward healing. Little by little, energy built within the crowd. Conversations began bubbling up around them, murmurs of agreement, glances of understanding. Yet, in the back of her mind, Elizabeth could sense the urgency overshadowing their collective hope. Just as she was about to speak again, another figure emerged from the crowd, this time someone they had never expected to see here. It was someone from the other side of the school's social ladder, someone with a reputation that, like it or not, mattered. As this unexpected ally approached, Elizabeth's heart raced. Would this person help propel them toward change, or would they bring doubt back into the circle? The weight of the moment pressed down on her. What would happen next? Who else would join their cause? The crowd shifted, and Elizabeth felt the air ripple with anticipation. The unexpected figure stepping forward was Jenna, the popular girl known for her fierce demeanor and impeccable style. Unlike the hesitant kids who had just spoken, Jenna moved with purpose, her bold stride drawing everyone's attention. The whispers grew louder, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Why are you here?" Someone in the crowd dared to ask, voicing what everyone else seemed to think. Jenna paused for a moment, her perfectly styled hair falling slightly into her eyes. She hesitated, as if weighing her next words before the silence stretched too long. "Because I'm tired of watching this happen. Tired of staying silent." Her voice was steady, though Elizabeth could hear an edge of vulnerability beneath her bravado. "What do you mean?" Michael interjected, leaning slightly forward. "You're not the one who usually stands up for anyone." "Maybe that's the problem," Jenna snapped back, but there was no malice in her tone, only a spark of conviction. "I used to think just ignoring the issues made them go away. But it doesn't. I've seen how it feels to be the target, maybe not in the same way as some of you, but I'm not immune. I want to help." A collective gasp rustled through the gathered students. This was a side of Jenna no one had witnessed before. Elizabeth's heart began to race. Was this the ally they needed? Jenna cleared her throat again, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "I know everyone thinks I'm just a cheerleader or a mean girl, but it's time to change that perception. I want to show that we're better than our reputations, better than just labels. We need to pull together as a school." The energy shifted again, hope mingled with disbelief. Elizabeth caught Alex's eye. He looked cautiously optimistic, uncertainty still hanging on the edges of his expression. "Maybe," Clara started, her voice softer than before, almost hopeful, "if Jenna helps back our safe box idea, a lot more people might join in. It could show that everyone's voice matters." "Exactly," Jenna replied, nodding vigorously. "I can help spread the word. We can put it in all the common areas, maybe even create a campaign that encourages kids to talk. I know I haven't made good choices before, but this is a chance to change things." Elizabeth felt a tide of warmth wash over her. They could be a real movement. But there was still that lingering doubt. Would this truly bring about the change they so desperately needed? What if the safety measures fell flat? Someone from the back called out, "What if some kids just want to keep their issues private? What if talking doesn't help?" Jenna paused again, the weight of that question resonating deeply. "Then let us build a community where everyone feels safe. They can share whatever they want, or nothing at all. We're fighting for a space where everyone belongs." The murmurings turned to excitement, a ripple of conversation igniting among the students. Elizabeth felt herself smile. It was a cautious smile, but a smile nonetheless. But even as hope filled her heart, another fear gnawed at her. What about tomorrow? She suddenly posed. What if no one comes? What if this is just a moment, and it all fades away after today? The crowd quieted, the lively atmosphere shifting into something darker, the possibility of disappointment creeping in like a shadow. Jenna stepped forward, her expression firm. "We can't let that happen. We'll make this a commitment. Every single voice matters, and we'll show everyone they're not alone." Just then, an unsettling sound cut through the newfound energy, a shout. The crowd turned, tension rippling back in an instant. A tall figure from the back, someone they all recognized, seemed poised to challenge everything they had just built. Elizabeth's heart pounded in her chest as they turned to face this new threat. Would Jenna's encouragement hold? Would the idea of this safe space survive this new challenge? The next moment felt pivotal. What would happen now? The crowd recoiled as the figure stepped into the light. Caleb, the school quarterback and self-appointed king. His presence loomed larger than life, a mix of confidence and authority that turned whispered encouragements into a shocked hush. Elizabeth felt her stomach twist as he smirked, the corners of his mouth curling upward like he was enjoying a particularly entertaining show. "What is this?" Caleb's voice boomed, laced with mockery. "The queen bee is trying to parrot some nonsense about being nice? You think you can change things by gaining sympathy points?" He strode forward, eyes narrowed, surveying the crowd. "This is exactly what's wrong with you losers. You think just talking will make everything better? Newsflash, it won't." The air grew thick with tension, and Elizabeth felt a shiver run down her spine. Jenna's confident facade was wavering, the fire in her eyes dimming just slightly. "I'm not trying to gain sympathy. I'm trying to create a space where everyone feels safe," Jenna shot back, her voice wavering a little, but she held her ground. Caleb laughed, a sound that echoed harshly among the students. "Safe? You think the weak can bow down and finally be accepted? It's survival of the fittest out here." He gestured broadly, as if dismissing all of them. "You're wasting your breath. Nobody's going to join your little club." A murmur of discontent rose from the crowd. Elizabeth felt her anger bubbling just beneath the surface. How could someone so privileged understand the struggles that so many faced? Her pulse raced, and she could see Alex's fists clenching, Clara biting her lip nervously. Jenna stepped forward again, determination igniting her expression. "You can keep your insults, Caleb. We will not let your negativity stifle our voices. Change starts here, and you can either be part of it or be left behind." The crowd began to murmur encouragement, but Caleb only rolled his eyes, fixing Jenna with a patronizing smile. "Please, spare us the brave talk. You really think this will last? We all know how kids are. It's all just talk until the next trend rolls by." Elizabeth felt a surge of frustration. "No. It's more than that. This isn't just a trend. It's about real feelings and issues that matter." Caleb stepped back, feigning shock, then burst into laughter, which spread through the crowd like wildfire. "Good luck trying to convince everyone to share their secrets. You might as well try to train a cat to fetch." His mocking tone hit hard, but instead of letting it crush her, Elizabeth realized this was exactly what they had to stand against. She glanced at Jenna, and for a brief moment, their eyes met in silent encouragement. "You don't understand, Caleb," Jenna said, her voice gaining strength with each syllable. "We're not just talking, we're building something. It's about hope. And if you can't see that, I pity you." The crowd shifted, a collective surge of pride and defiance echoing through the students as they felt Jenna's strength. But just as victory seemed a tangible breath away, the sound of a phone buzzing broke the moment, echoing through the still air. Elizabeth glanced behind her. A smaller boy, lost in the confusion, stood to swipe at his phone, drawing attention away from the confrontation. "Hey, are you okay?" Elizabeth called out, shifting her focus to reassure him, but Caleb quickly turned the crowd's attention back. "See? Even here, you're losing control. You think anyone cares? They're all just going to forget about this in a week. Maybe even a few days." Elizabeth's heart sank again, but something felt different this time. They were experiencing this together, a shared struggle fought against one individual's contempt. Would they really let Caleb's insults throw them off? Just then, a powerful thought struck her. Maybe their fight against the pessimism that rang through Caleb's words was exactly what they needed. Yet doubts loomed larger. Was their movement strong enough to withstand Caleb's skepticism? And before Elizabeth could gather another thought, Jenna called out into the crowd, "Okay, let us prove him." "Wrong. Who's with us?" As hands slowly went up, Elizabeth felt her hopes swaying between doubt and possibility. Would this be the moment they all decided to stand together? The tension hung in the air. Would they rise to the call or fall under the weight of negativity? The diner's atmosphere had shifted from the buoyant excitement of new beginnings to a tense battlefield. Elizabeth felt the butterflies in her stomach churn as she looked at the crowd. Would they embrace unity or retreat into silence? She could see doubt creeping into some expressions, but Jenna's fierce resolve shone brightly. "I know this is scary," Jenna called out, her voice unwavering, "but we can turn the tide. We need to show Caleb that we mean business." As the murmurs of uncertainty mixed with hesitant approval, a fire ignited inside Elizabeth. She stepped forward, her heart racing. "Caleb thinks we're weak, that our voices don't matter. But here, right here, we're the ones who will change everything. We're the ones with strength." The crowd began to stir, eyes lighting up with the possibility. "Who believes we can inspire change?" Elizabeth shouted, feeling the pulse of their unity pushing against the wall of negativity. "I do!" Someone shouted from the back, followed by others, voices rising in a wave of defiance as fear transformed into a chorus of support. Jenna beamed, catching the momentum. "Every one of you has a story, and we're going to share them. We'll show them they cannot ignore us." Even Caleb, who had been basking in centers of attention, began to falter. The melting facade of smugness on his face told Elizabeth that he underestimated the power of their resolve. The crowd grew bolder, inching closer as one, their spirits intertwining. "We're not just a trend," Sarah said, stepping up beside Elizabeth. "We're a community, and we won't let one person shatter that. It's time we lift each other up." Ethan chimed in, "Let us hold that open forum. Let us bring in kids from all cliques and backgrounds, and give them a voice. We'll send a clear message that hate has no home here." The collective energy shifted, vibrating brightly, a chorus of potential echoing around them. Caleb visibly recoiled, realizing the tide was turning. "Good luck with that. No one will take your little protest seriously." But even as he said it, his confidence waned. Elizabeth, feeling bold, stepped right up to him. "Then help us change that. Be someone who lifts others up instead of tearing them down." The message was as much for Caleb as it was for every spectator staring in stunned silence. With every heartbeat, Elizabeth felt the weight of anxiety lift. It was time to let go of fear and embrace hope. Together, we'll create that safe space for everyone, the voices that feel unheard, the kids who feel invisible. Nobody should have to bear the weight alone. Cheers erupted from the crowd, overwhelming Caleb's dismissal. Elizabeth could hardly contain her joy. The very walls of the diner seemed to vibrate with warmth, their determination swelling and spilling out beyond the shadows of doubt. Every eye was on her now. Let us create an event worth remembering. A community fair where we can come together, support one another, and share our stories. It's not about us against them. It's about all of us united. The room was electric, the patrons rallying around her words, invigorated by the promise of connection. And just then, the little boy raised his hand again, his youthful innocence grounding everyone. "Can I help with the safe box? I want to write my story." "Of course," Elizabeth said, tears pricking in her eyes. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Their collective gasps of hope fused together, hands waving in eagerness, as everyone began to chat excitedly about how they could contribute, how they could support each other, as families grew closer and friendship formed across previously divided lines. Caleb stood there for a moment. The sudden shift in energy was palpable. He seemed caught and convicted, perhaps realizing the power of numbers and unyielding heart. Elizabeth didn't know if he would join them, but for the first time, she didn't care. Their unity had begun, and that was enough. As plans started to take shape, Elizabeth felt the community enveloping her like a warm embrace. She looked around at the faces: Jenna, Ethan, Sarah, Clara, even Jamie. "Let us schedule that meeting," Michael chimed in with renewed passion. "It's time our stories became a part of the school culture." And like a spark catching fire, conversations, laughter, and ideas ignited. They were no longer just individuals. They were now a living testament to resilience, to family and community values blossoming in every conversation. Hope circulated through the diner, bursting forth like sunbeams shattering dark clouds. Together, they had built something beautiful, an authentic connection that no one could ever threaten. And as Elizabeth looked around, taking it all in, she realized that even once lost, now there flourished a newfound courage, a refusal to be silent. This community was alive, vibrant, and ready to make real change. This was just the beginning. If you believe in the power of community, you need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories of transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice deserves to be heard. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we have the power to create change.